Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to Your Dad's Playlist. I am Emery.
I'm Ansley.
Today we're going to be talking about Woodstock 99 and who was at fault for what happened during it. Our sponsors next.
All right, a special thanks to Silver Sky Woodworking for their support of our channel. Without them, it would be impossible to record this. If any of our listeners need custom furniture, accent walls, cutting boards, or custom cabinets, they should head over to VeridianNews.org and click the link for Silver Sky.
And we are always looking for new sponsors, so let us know on VeridianNews.org if you would like to be a part of our work and reach our audience with us.
All right.
So Woodstock 99, when people talk about Woodstock 99, people picture, of course you have Fred Durst and this whole set with break stuff, people tearing down plywood, throwing all that, but a lot of people don't really know what happened. So the thing about Woodstock 99 is that the organizers, they come together, right? They have this goal. We're going to recreate the peace and the love and the baby conceiving that happened at Woodstock 69 with Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, all the other people, all the good peace and love vibes.
And my thing is, why would you redo something that was absolutely insane? But,
Yeah, Woodstock 69, did have a reputation of being in a overly chaotic
you just gotta
music
have
festival.
You gotta have that pop culture, you gotta have that pop culture, what's it called, moment, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You gotta have that weird, time in music, and I feel like they had to redo 69 again.
I think it's also just because as time passes, people look back into these events and kind of forget the bad they did because some of their highlights were so good. Like Jimi Hendrix playing the Star Spangled Banner on his guitar. It's kind of like historical figures. People remember Henry Ford for all the good stuff he did and forget that he was a Nazi.
Yeah.
So organizers of Woodstock 99, they come together, they say, we're going to hold our multi-day music festival, we're going to do this again. And the place they pick is Griffiths Air Force Base, which is a former Air Force base they picked in the middle of Rome, New York. And it's going to go from between July 22nd and July 25th. First, this should have been a huge red flag off the bat because this Air Force base was a former Superfund site, and what that means for people who don't know is that it was closed down at some point because it had toxic chemicals and just was unsafe for life, so they kind of had to shut it down, but I guess it was fine at some point. But so they get the ball rolling on the festival. It's advertised to be this big thing. If I'm remembering correctly, a lot of tickets went up for about $150, but I could totally go fact check that later.
Yeah.
But it was advertised to be this huge, big, great music festival, and problems started from the beginning because the thing started out with a drought. Obviously, I said start with a Superfund site, but it has a drought going in the beginning, which means it's hot. It is freaking hot. It is New York in July. It's hot enough, but we're in a drought. But they get the acts rolling, and we're having a pretty good time. But then one big problem is with every single festival ever, the prices are too high. The prices for everything. Prices for water. I think it was $4 a water, and $12 a unseasoned, unflavored pizza, and those were your options. And a lot of the water fountains, they didn't work. They were busted up. They were broken. Yeah. And especially later, these later days, they had these giant troughs of water, these big old tubs, right? You were expected to drink out of, which first off, if that went according to the plan in the first place, that's disgusting.
It just sounds like there are a bunch of just cows grazing in a field.
Exactly. I was literally thinking about that. That's what you give cows.
Yeah, and you talk about the mud and the mud bunny or on that. It's just
So people would try to drink out of this water, right? And one big problem with Woodstock is that you weren't leaving. When you get there, you try to leave, you can't come back. Hotels were booked. I think it was for the Baseball Hall of Fame ceremony. So all hotels around are booked for months. You cannot get out. You're camping in Woodstock, which means you're not showering, you're not doing any of this. But people would go to these water troughs and they're brushing their teeth in it. They're bathing in it. They're showering in it. I'm not sure what they're showering with. I'm not sure what soap bars or shampoo they brought with them. But
get your travel size Dove out.
Exactly. They're travel size Dove to Woodstock. But then at some point, people got sick of the heat. They got sick of all this, and they're like, "We're gonna break the pipes. We're gonna freaking get this water."
No, I honestly don't blame them though, because like they're probably like, suffering at this point.
Yeah, they probably were.
Yeah, they were
honestly.
going insane.
And well, people as 2000s, 90s, 2000s teenagers, they start playing in this mud, not knowing that it is filled with human feces. It's filled with all the stuff of the porta potties because they broke into these pipes. The sanitation companies didn't come right. These porta potties are overflowing, and they're breaking the pipes to them and flinging the quote unquote mud at each other.
It's just like pigs running in the mud gone wrong. Like,
yes, it's freaking awful.
It's really bad.
And it smelled like death. It smells awful.
Yeah.
And another problem with this event is that, like I said, they wanted to recreate the peace and love. These organizers were not aware of who they were hiring. They're not getting Jimi Hendrix. You're not getting Janis Joplin. You're getting Metallica and Megadeth. You're getting Korn, Limp Bizkit, Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're getting all these bands that are more hardcore. I mean, I wouldn't consider Red Hot Chili Peppers hardcore, but you get these bands that are more hardcore.
But definitely not peace and love.
Yeah, they're definitely not the peace and love. They're chaotic teenage anthems of the day. You're running around with your friends at night. You're messing around. Those are the bands you're listening to.
Yeah.
It's dude bro culture in the middle of July, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, what they did, Woodstock 99 had a problem with people coming in, not stopping to the point where at some point they had to make it a free event because so many people were coming in. And so their solution to this with Woodstock 99 were I think it was 6 miles of plywood around the Air Force Base.
Wow. And
it's plywood. It's plywood. You throw knives into that because of how weak it is. It's plywood. So that obviously got torn up at some point. You got, I think it was a maximum, it was between 200,000, 400,000 people coming into this festival, and it's all crowded, it's overcrowded, and like I said, you're in the drought in the middle of July on an Air Force base, you're on that hot tarmac, it's cooking you alive, tensions are rising, people are passing out from heat stroke, a guy died watching Metallica.
And you're standing next to your friend, you're like, oh, you kind of look like a chicken nugget.
Exactly, you look like a chicken nugget, you in these hallucinations, it probably did.
Not as hot as a chicken nugget.
Yeah, you're dehydrated, and it all comes to a boiling point. Limp Bizkit comes out on stage. Fred Durst, and he says, "You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna break stuff." And then they played break stuff, and people broke stuff. Mm-hmm. People are flipping cars. They're riding. They're setting fires. There are these MTV sound towers and stuff. They're tearing them down. They're pushing them over. They're looting buildings and taking the overpriced pretzels back for the people. Yeah. And it is just and there was an abundant problem of sexism at the thing. Anytime a female artist would get on stage, they're booed. They're asked to show. They're all these things. And it's insane, and it really comes to boil when Red Hot Chili Peppers goes up there as a tribute to Jimi Hendrix. They have Jimi Hendrix in the background playing Fire, and they play his song Fire, and that's what happened. Fire. People started lighting things on fire. They took candles. This is in 1999 July. Columbine happened 3 or so months ago. So there's a vigil for Columbine set up there, and people are taking the candles from the Columbine vigil. They're lighting the vigil on fire as a giant bonfire. They're lighting these towers on fire. Everything is on fire.
The fact that the cops were not called, the fire department was not there. There is no way of stopping that at that point.
There really wasn't.
No.
So the small law enforcement presence, so security-wise, they had about 500 people in T-shirts that they called like the peace squad, the peacekeeping squad. And these are just little scrawny nerds in T-shirts. They're not going to do anything. Half the time they're joining the crowd anyway. Well, so they get a bunch of actual police there, and the police are doing the same thing. They're joining the crowd. They're having fun. They're goofing off. They're not helping.
Which is insane. And like, the thing is too is that even if you had like a small police force or you had the peace like people, they cannot stop thousands and thousands of people from rioting and going crazy.
This is 400 upwards of 400,000 people.
They're delirious. They have no idea like what the heck they're doing.
Yeah, they're delirious. They've been living through beer pumped through their veins, and
There's just no stopping.
Yeah, there was no stopping, and out of the 200,000 to 400,000 people who were at this event, obviously not all of them participated in all this, but a very, very large, decent chunk of them did. 44 people ended up being arrested.
Only 44.
Only 44 people ended up being arrested, and only one of those was for any kind of sexual assault or anything at all, because even though that was said to be a problem at the event, only one person was ever charged of it.
Yeah.
And
those are just the 44 people that couldn't run very fast.
Yeah, those are the 44 people who got unlucky.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and there were some other small interesting happenings. You wanted to mention the string cheese.
Oh yes. Okay, so I was like looking through so there's a Woodstock 99 website, and so if you're ever like wanting to look at more like bands and like stuff that you want to listen to, go ahead and go look at that. But so I was kind of looking through there, and I saw the string cheese incident, and I was like, what is the string cheese incident? And so me and Emery were like, oh, was it like an incident during Woodstock, or was like something happened with the string cheese? Like, I don't know how they would even get string cheese.
No idea.
Yeah, it would have been like melted by the time.
$500 from a vendor.
And then I was thinking like Cheese Touch, like Greg Heffley, like what are
doing? Kid.
Yeah, and so I was looking, and it was like a band, and I was like, okay, I've never heard their music, but like I kind of want to figure out, like, Emery was like, why are they named this string cheese like incident?
I want to know if this was an actual event that inspired them to name their band the String Cheese Incident.
Yeah, so it was really just like at first they were called like the Blue Cheese String Band or whatever, and then they were thinking about calling themselves the String Cheese Conspiracy, but they ended up with the String Cheese Incident.
And it was their words that the String Cheese Conspiracy sounded too threatening.
Yeah, which I don't.
I would be very threatened by the String Cheese Conspiracy.
Oh no, it's the conspiracy of the string cheese.
Another one of my favorite moments is we just talked about this back there was Rage Against the Machine. They burn the American flag and everybody's loving it. There's a punk band. They burn the American flag. That's this thing, but they're like having a good time. They're dude broing it out. But the Tragically Hip go on stage. It's a Canadian band. And they start performing "O Canada," and they are booed off stage, things thrown at them, people are hating them, and they drown out their music with the crowd singing the Star Spangled Banner.
Wow.
The worst thing they could have done on that stage is be Canadian.
That is so sad. It's like have you seen like How I Met Your Mother, where like the one girl, Robin, she goes into like this bar, and it was like people, like I don't know what, I think it was like Montana, people from Montana go to that bar or something, I don't know like the actual state, and she's from Canada, so she can't tell them, hey, I'm kind of Canadian, because they make fun of them, like they hate Canadians, and so once they find out she's Canadian, they like kick her out.
Yeah.
And that's like basically the same thing going on with them. And like that's just so sad, because Canadians are nice. Like from what I know, I don't know actually if I've ever met a Canadian.
The one or two Canadians I've ever met have always been cool. But I mean, this is the height of MTV summer dude bro culture. You're gonna have xenophobia and sexism and all these things, unfortunately, because that's just I guess the way it was.
Well, you were like looking up like the band that was booed off stage that were Canadian. I was like, oh, Justin Bieber, like what?
Justin Bieber.
I was like, what? Like, are we talking about him?
If this happened 10 years later, he totally would have been booed off stage.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, so they look at the story, right? They look at the tragedy that was Woodstock 99. And a lot of people unfairly blame Fred Durst because the most popular clip of that entire event is Fred Durst going on stage and they start performing break stuff because that's from the crowd to get them all jumping.
Yeah.
And maybe besides Korn's Blind set, or you have Red Hot Chili Peppers where Flea is walking around naked on stage. But I mean, everybody looks at Fred Durst and because he kind of did incite a riot a little bit, but at that point, you can't fully blame him because. True. You have, the police, you have inadequate security, you have 500 little nerds in t-shirts telling people to stop raging. They're not going to stop raging. And they're joining in the crowd. You have the crowd mentality in the culture. Like I said, this is just the absolute what's happening at the time. That's what they're doing. And you have these event organizers, the poor planning, the poor infrastructure. They didn't know what they were getting into. They didn't provide the right things. Essentially what you have is a pan of popcorn kernels, and you're lighting a fire underneath it and letting it go for a couple days. They're going to start jumping when Fred Durst comes out. They're going to start lighting things on fire, going crazy, because what you've essentially created is a crazy house in the middle of this tarmac.
Yeah, when you invite these bands who, like, their statement is to make people, like, feel, like, rage and, like, not, like, anger, but, like, a sort of, like, rebellion and, like, pride and all of that. And you have these kids who are literally, like, delirious and, like, are delusional. I have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
And you don't have people, like, regulating it. You're going to have people breaking stuff. You're going to have fires. And, like, yeah, Fred Durst probably shouldn't have played that song at that time.
Or even just...
And Red Hot Chili Peppers probably shouldn't have played Fire after that.
Yeah.
But you know what? It was going to happen.
It was going to happen either way.
Yeah.
Break Stuff is their most popular song.
Yeah.
So it's kind of unfair to pin the whole thing on Fred Durst, even though it's a very Fred Durst thing to do.
It's just like sometimes we gotta read the room and be like, that's not the song.
Exactly, and again, not knowing what bands you're inviting. You know, you don't know. Apparently, you don't know Fred Durst, even though it's this whole thing. You invite Metallica. 8 years earlier was Metallica's 1991 concert in the Soviet Union that had 2 million people there. These are huge bands who are at least for the time more hardcore. And you, like I said, you didn't know what you're getting into, and this is the consequences of that. You're not inviting the Beatles here, all this. And like we also said, we discovered this, the Smashing Pumpkins were invited, and they declined because they were suspicious of the event organizers, and honestly, rightfully so. I don't like Billy Corgan as a person. They have
no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't like Billy Corgan as a person, but that was a good call on his behalf. So
like Ice Cube was there, like random, but like okay.
Yeah, I mean.
But then we started reading on about like kind of what his message was in his raps and stuff, and I was like, this makes sense for this type of event.
Yeah, the violence and the gang activity, all this, it makes sense, and that those are the kind of people you're going to be inviting. That's what's popular.
I thought that was crazy because he just like there's like these rock, metal, all this type of stuff, and you have rapper Ice Cube.
Oh yeah, and I mean there are definitely more out like bands that didn't fit in as well, like Jamiroquai or Willie Nelson, but like I said, the organizers. I think the most blame falls onto the organizers, at least to me, in my opinion. They didn't plan this thing well. I think second to crowd mentality. I think Fred Durst he was a catalyst for something, but it isn't fully his fault. It just happened. So
the way it started, just like it was already downhill.
Yeah, it already started off on a wrong note and it ended on.
And like you already had the '96 one, you already have the '69 one, and like both of those, like especially the '69, I like wrote a whole article about this. It's crazy. It was bad. Probably not as bad as this. I'm not sure because I was not there, so luckily so. But yeah, it's just like you have like it's kind of like the Titanic. It's like there's people saying like, oh, we're gonna rebuild the Titanic. We're gonna rebuild the Titanic. But Titanic literally sunk. Yeah. Because y'all were overly prideful, and so this is kind of what's going on here. Is like you've had two events, didn't go as great as you would imagine, but they're thinking of the highlights. They're thinking about the Star Spangled Banner. They're thinking about those bands that made them feel something. And I see what they're trying to do, but you gotta plan better, buddy. Like, you gotta plan better.
And my favorite part is that people are trying to do this again. People are planning shows, calling it Woodstock '99. We're doing it again. We're inviting all these bands. And we're gonna light porta potties on fire again. And I think it's that same situation of. We are looking fondly back on something because it reminds us of when we were younger. It's something in the past where we're able to more forget how bad it was. Yeah. So, that's Woodstock '99.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if they try to do it again.
I could see it happening again, especially since we've had little minor incidents like this, like the Astroworld concert a couple years ago, or the popularity of the Eras tour, or all these things, I could totally see this happening again. Yeah. At least the MTV teenage summer crowd culture isn't as much there, and I think that was a lot to blame. So that's very different, which would probably not be a big detractor of this happening again, but it very well could. So
hey, we'll let y'all know if this is a thing again. We can all pull up together.
we can all go together.
Yeah. I'll bring my bucket of water. We can all share.
Yeah, we're definitely bringing a couple fire trucks worth of water and make sure there's adequate hotel space so I'm not sleeping in a tent on a tarmac.
You will not catch me doing that. That's for sure.
But yeah, Woodstock '99. That was that.
Thank you all for listening to this podcast.
100%. Final statement. I would have loved to have seen some of these bands.
Yeah. Well, like, I would have at least liked to watch it on, like, TV or something.
Oh, yeah. You had your digital passes to MTV.
I would like to see that. I don't know if I would want to actually be there. Maybe, like, outside looking in. Maybe, like, a little backstage action.
Yeah.
Like, definitely not in the crowd or playing out.
Yeah.
That would be cool, but...
Once they start pulling down the sound towers and burning
that's when I'd be like...
That's when I'm leaving.
Yeah, I'd be calling it a day.
So... yeah, again, thank you guys for listening. Thank you to our sponsors at Silver Sky Woodworking and all the other.
Thank you for listening to your dad's playlist. I don't know if your dad's playlist is like this, but you know.
Mine probably isn't.
All right, catch you next time.
See you, crew. Stay rocking.